You know, sometimes when exploring the maps, sometimes my favorite places to explore are the places that are the least charted. And that couldn't be more true than our good friends North Korea. And by good friends, I mean they're not really good friends with anybody. Now, if you just take a look at the street view that's offered just about anywhere, having no street view is not necessarily unique to North Korea. There's a lot of places around the world where the Google cars can't really get to. A big chunk of Africa, big chunk of the Middle East and Asia. So it's not too out of the ordinary that there's no street view in North Korea. But luckily, there are still pictures that people have taken just around the country. So you can still get kind of a good look into at least parts of the country. Now, believe it or not, it is actually possible for people to visit North Korea. However, the people that do get to visit, they're heavily monitored. They're basically dragged along with a tour guide. They're not allowed to veer anywhere away from the path that they're on. And really, they're only going to see what the government wants them to see. So let's start with Pyongyang, which is the capital of North Korea here. It's by far the biggest city. And this is basically where the most privileged North Koreans get to live. So let's just drop in and see what we've got here. I don't know how much you guys know about North Korea, but it's a very heavy government dictatorship where basically all of the people that live here are prisoners and are not allowed to leave. Half the country is starving while the corrupt government is taking all the money for themselves mostly. So you'll notice that there's quite a lot of just government buildings. You probably won't see how poor a lot of people are, but you can tell that a lot of the money made by the people here all goes just to the state. And then they use that power to force the whole country to worship them, basically. So there's one thing you will see a lot. This is Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il, basically past supreme leaders of North Korea. And so you'll see those pictures a lot all around the map here. So let's just sort of wander around and see what the place looks like. So something that's very prominent, I would say, about North Korea is that it's very deceptive, especially to the outside world. There are tons of people here that are just starving and living in slums or living in prison camps, but you'll never see that. They will never allow any journalists or anyone with cameras to go near stuff like that. So basically, the people that do visit, they are only stuck to seeing the best of what North Korea has to offer. And so a lot of documentaries or a lot of times when journalists will get a good look, they'll say, wow, look how pretty everything is. Look at how well maintained it is. Look how well behaved people are. When really, you're only seeing the best of the best. In fact, a lot of what you see can be completely fake. There's even sometimes where there will be really amazing looking buildings, but inside it's basically just a hollowed out chunk of concrete where there's nothing actually inside. It's just there to look nice. But this is basically the highlight of the entire country. If you only saw this, you probably wouldn't think that you were in such a dark place. But I have to say, so much of this, it looks so gray. Like, it's so lifeless. I mean, you mostly just have a whole lot of concrete buildings, lots of just huge paved areas. I think that parts of it is, they do like memorial or big parade stuff, like the Kim Jong-il Square. I think that most of this is for like those big giant rallies and parades that sometimes you might see clips of. But if you step away from the glamorous part of it, you might see that there's some not so nice places. So over here, I mean, this is really all you're going to see. There's not any pictures, but this is definitely the slums of Pyongyang. And even then, you have to be really lucky just to live in the major city. And if you or anyone in your family does something that the state deems unworthy, then you might get kicked out of here. But let's look around and see what other kind of pictures we've got. So a lot of the country actually is just a lot of farmland and a lot of nature. In fact, from a lot of the pictures I've seen, there's actually a lot of really nice looking places just because it's very well maintained. And while there might be places that are really cool to tourists, I mean, a lot of the people that actually live there probably are not even allowed or couldn't afford to go and visit places in their own country. And it's really crazy because you look at the border between North and South Korea, there's tons of blue on this side of the border. Like, you could look at pretty much anything you want. There's lots of businesses. You're free to go travel around there. It's not nearly as heavy of a dictatorship like it is up here. So it can be kind of hard even just to find the pictures. So what a lot of people who've been there have said is that the country looks like it's maybe 40 years behind us. It's kind of like looking at an industrial city from like the 1980s or something. And I can really tell what they mean because a lot of it just seems so outdated. Also, I've noticed that in a lot of open public areas, there's not a lot of people anywhere. Obviously, they don't have a lot of freedom to do whatever they want. Alright. So it does seem kind of interesting when you see people just living what seems to be normal lives at the surface. I mean, clearly there's a lot of darkness under the surface. Also, they do have one ski resort in the whole country. From what I hear, not a lot of people actually get to go here. You know, the only people in the entire country that really have any money or opportunity are usually like the high-ups in the government, you know, the elite class. And so, like, a very few people are even allowed to or can even afford to go to a place like this. And of course, it's another thing that the government throws money at to make the country look good or just to spoil Kim Jong-un while the rest of the country is so poor. It is temporarily closed, though, so maybe they're having COVID lockdowns over here. You know, I always think it's funny when there's, like, these random businesses listed on Google. I think that these were made up, but it's kind of funny to read the reviews. I definitely love the place. It definitely tastes like normal food and not my grandpa's arm, and they are not definitely holding a Glock on my head and saying I should write a good review. I love a fun place to bring the kids. The best food in North Korea because it's the only food here. The food literally sucks. I think they tried to serve me a vacuum cleaner. Alright, I'll stay away from this waterfall cafe next time. Let's look around at another city. Alright, so here's another pretty major city. I have seen pictures of this. There are a few pretty good documentaries of people who've managed to take a tour of the whole country. But again, it's so gloomy and so gray. There's very little color to anything. So I don't know if I'll be able to get a good look on the maps here. But something I've heard they do a lot is they'll have the main highway that maybe you're taking a bus down, and then right off the sides of the highway, it'll be like fancy looking apartments or trees. But then behind it, that's where you have all of these like rundown slums and just broken up houses where people actually live. So they basically just hide that. It's all just about deception here. Oh, here we've got another fake restaurant. Delicious dirt and ringworm. 4 stars because I stepped on a mine in the parking lot. Believe it or not, there's nothing there on the map. So let's take a look at some of the pictures over on the North Korea and China border, because there is one bridge that goes straight across. And of course, the North Korean government won't allow you to ever cross one way or the other. So I think this is actually on the Chinese side. They're looking over to the Korean side. It's got to be really weird for the locals who are able to even travel over here, just seeing such an off-limits place right across the river, a place they're never allowed to go to, and probably never even knowing what they're missing from it either. I'll probably do another video on China eventually, because there's a lot of just like hidden little gems around the map there too. So this seems to be a very common trend around here, where you'll have big concrete, just colorless buildings, but surrounded by a lot of nature. I mean, they definitely like things to look nice, at least from the outside, but you never know what it's actually like on the inside. I've heard that a lot of times they don't really have reliable electricity or very good running water. I mean, stuff you would expect. But I mean, just looking around, there's cities all over the place. We usually only hear about Pyongyang, but I mean, there's something like 25 million people in this country. And so they definitely are spread out. You never know which ones are for prison camps, though. Also, believe it or not, it actually does border Russia right over here. Here you've got North Korea and China border, and then China and Russia border. So here's North Korea, here's Russia, and China just has a little slip right in between them, only up to there. So I'm sure there's a lot of people that try and escape through Russia rather than escape through China, because the relations between China and Korea, they actually do kind of work together in some aspects. So yeah, this is what I'm talking about, where it looks like it's something from 50 years ago. I mean, just the type of clothes that people wear and how everyone's biking. Most people are not even allowed to drive, so like nobody really has a car. And again, you have these really fancy government buildings. They look really nice, I'll be honest. But you can tell that they are probably not ethically made, to say the least. So I mean, I say that it's really gloomy and just dark all the time. You can kind of attribute that to the weather. But at the same time, so much of the architecture is just so lifeless. And I'm sure that there's not a whole cheery mood among the people either. So over here in the city of Kaesong, I think that this counts as that, we've got the Kim Jong-il and the Kim Il-sung Monument. This is something I've seen quite a lot from pictures and videos. And apparently when you go here, if you ever take a picture or a video, you can't ever show just partial statue. You have to show the whole thing within the frame, or else you'll get in trouble. Like, even if you just had a newspaper with this picture on it, you're not even allowed to, like, fold the newspaper over where they show up on the picture. Like, it's just crazy how strict they are with a lot of this stuff. 1 star, bad. 1 star, there is nothing special about a short, fat man. 1 star, it's so silly. And see, even if you just left reviews like this and you lived here, I mean, not that they're allowed to use the internet, but if you even said these things around here, you would be in some trouble. But it definitely looks in a lot of these pictures like these were taken by tourists. I mean, obviously, locals aren't the ones uploading these. But yeah, you can tell that some of the people here are not Korean. And I mean, even from like childhood, most kids, while they're growing up here, they're taught to hate Americans. They're taught to hate the Western world. And so when you've got a whole community of people who are propagandized to just hate everything American, and if you're American, you go and visit them, then they are probably not going to have a whole lot of respect for you. And yeah, here's another example of just big government monuments and just massive paved areas. You can tell that these are used for just massive rallies and parades. And then over here you've got the Workers' Party Foundation Monument. It's a whole lot of propaganda. And then finally you have the big Pyramid Hotel, which apparently has been under construction for decades and it's still not finished. It's one of the most iconic buildings in the whole city, but it's all just for show. There's nothing on the inside. I guess they also use it for broadcasting more propaganda throughout the neon lights all around it. So it's basically just the world's most expensive neon sign. But that's going to do it for today. You know, this was a bit of a different one because usually I just look around and explore, but there's a lot to say and explain about why things are the way they are here. It's a very deceptive place since they don't want anyone knowing what actually goes on there, even though most of the world has a pretty good idea. But thanks to everybody for watching. I'm thinking of doing more live streams, seeing how as the one live stream I did better than most of these videos, so look out for those and enjoy the cat video.